Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 173 of Kouryer podcast. Our today's guest is Mr. Sahil Trivedi. He's a senior concept artist at EA Games from Hyderabad, India. Now, of course, as usual, before jumping into the first questions, I want to also quickly mention that in the captions, in the for contact section, you can see the ID to his Instagram, the link to his art session, and a link to a Creative Gaga website article, which, explains a little bit of the workflow of some of his stuff, which I think if you're interested in that, you should check it out as well. And it's kind of interesting because right now we're at episode 173 and it's about like 27 episodes later, we're going to reach episode 200. So I'm kind of personally excited about reaching that milestone. And I don't, not to spoil anything that much, but there's going to be like last time I reached episode 100, there was like a little raffle of kind of, how do you say it in English? Like we basically picked a winner out, basically did a little lottery thing, when I reached episode 100, right? And I gifted someone a course, on Udemy. But this time I'm not going to do that. We're going to do something more that's community centered, that everyone can actually benefit from it. And without spoiling too much, I'm just giving you a heads up that it's coming. It's probably going to happen in summer. Now, with that being said, let's jump to the first signature question I ask everyone. All right. First of all, how are you doing right now?
I'm doing good. Thank you for having me here.
All right. Awesome. My pleasure, man. All right. So give us a little introduction on how we got into the world of visual arts and design. And just in another word, tell us the story of, how you decided to become an artist for the rest of your life.
Sure, definitely. So to start with, I believe being a 90s kid, I had really good childhood in terms of Cartoon Network, Pogo, and what sort of different channels we used to get over here. So I've seen Noddy, Oswald, all sort of very cute and early characters like Huggable, basically, right? So it's one of my memory from childhood which inspired me to do something very similar for my audience when I grow up, right? So it's always some of that motivation when you start off something that you want to give back to the community. You want to at least express yourself in a true manner, right? Now, this is something that was extremely personal that I started off in my childhood. Then I realized you definitely need textbook knowledge, you need a template to get started with. So then I started off with fine arts. I did my traditional art journey over there, all hands-on work with sketching, sculptures, painting, whatnot. So in that, I did applied arts, and from there I sort of understood what sort of visual communication is required for movies or games. So slowly grasping from that method, I started exploring more in terms of game design, because as well as when I was watching those cartoon shows all sort of Pogo and which used to go on air, I think as well as at the same time, I was also playing games. So playing games was one of my favorite hobbies, back in the days. And it used to bring me joy, doing that. Time when we would play Mario or Contra, these all sort of different genres of games. So it's definitely fun to dive into that, what things you really love doing. And later on I started off with that visual communication, and then I started off with animation. So I did animation, masters in animation for 2.5 years, and understood what is storyboarding, what is character design, what is background design. So with all sort of I think about, I would say 10 to 11 years of that, from the very beginning of my journey till here, this is the stage where I'm at a stage where I feel okay, this is a stylized platform that I have achieved now. Now I want to dive in even more to it. That's where I'm at right now.
All right. And what were some of your favorite video games that you really enjoyed playing that you spent a lot of wasted? No, I wouldn't say wasted because I guess, that saying of, if you enjoy the time you spend doing it, that wasn't wasted, that sort of stuff. So basically, what was the video games that you really enjoyed the most? Let's put it that way.
I think it's definitely the time wasted because during that time you need to go for your studies. You need to focus on your 10th standard, 12th standard. So it's definitely like waste of time. But then again, it's something that when you like doing it, it's something that you personally feel that connected to it. This was the part like where I felt like, okay, this is something that where my calling is, where something that I feel that I should put my time and effort into, right? Now, coming to the games, like I have played so Contra, Mario, like I mentioned, then Sonic was there. All 8-bit, 16-bit, old console games, on Nintendo. So it's absolutely fun because the thing is like when you play on old console games, like it's all pixelated and they still give you the quality of that beautiful 2D artwork. You must have seen there is there is a game which is called Rush or something, which has a very stylized bikers on upfront, like when there's a loading screen. I'm not sure like with the game title, but you can see like how much of detail and precision that's been gone into in that particular work arena. So yeah, I mean back in 2000, like there was a particular period of time like where games were just starting to evolve because 3D jumped in and then it jumped in pretty heavily like afterwards, like 2005, 2010. NFS Most Wanted came in. EA was it had like a thumbprint like on my brain. Like it was like if I get to work with EA, I definitely want to reach out to Most Wanted people, NFS especially. So especially these guys are the veterans of it. So it's absolutely fun to be with them. So yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, definitely. And like when having a game company really inspire you, I think is such an important, not just as a game company. I mean, just any sort of entertainment media group or something inspire you. It's always a nice motivation to start working on your pieces or your skills. Whenever you feel lazy or don't want to do it, you remember the happy times you're gonna have with that. For example, group of people. And yeah, I have this kind of the same thing with Bethesda because I absolutely love Fallout franchise, and I I can't get enough of replaying especially the Fallout New Vegas one. Like that's my favorite game of all time, by the way. And after that is Minecraft, but yeah, like just Fallout is something that I really genuinely I'm passionate about. And yeah, that's actually one of the things that can sometimes motivate me to whenever I hit a really big creative block and I don't know what to do. Of course, I open up my Kit Bash file and just try to play with something. It's better than knowing nothing. I start experimenting, and yeah, that's also helpful for me. And I also want to ask you about something that, of course, in the introduction I mentioned that you're a senior concept artist and working for games and all that, but now I want to ask you this. What is your main branch of design that you're focusing on? Like, all right, you're a concept artist. Good. What field of concept art you're specializing in? That's my question.
Sure. So my field of specialization would be in terms of 2D game art. I would say more of a stylized format of it. Now, currently, I'm working on PVZ2 right now as a senior concept artist. So what I get to do is design concepts. You can say I started from very scratch. Now you have a particular plant in a design document, right? Like let's say for an example, okra, which is ladyfinger, right? So poking okra, so pokra. So pokra was one of our characters' name in PVZ2. Its main attribute was to poke zombies and kill them basically. So yeah, it's a very fun journey, like to make an example of like vegetables and like different characters that's like out there already, and we transform them into a bit of like characteristics. Like there is also like one more example, like we had a plant named like Fern, and then we mix it up with Inferno. So Inferno was like a plant name, and what it basically does is like it brings out like a tornado like on the game board, and it gets all the zombies like at the back of the screen. So it basically throws them away. So this is also like one sort of like different type of characteristics that think of like when we are designing a character, we have to think about like how the expressions would be, what sort of animation states would be. Would it be idle? Would it be plan for attack? Would it be proper just a basic attack, or there is water animation? So all sort of like keyframes and storyboards we have to create like for these characters as well. And sometimes we get to create like backgrounds is also like part of it, part of like a live games journey, in which we get to design these backgrounds like as per the theme, as per like particular setup that we think that this particular plants or like this particular event deserves. So yeah, there's a lot of like brainstorming that goes into it, and I feel like that's the best part about it. Like when the whole team comes up with you with different ideas, with different like thoughts, different feedback from their perspective, what they think about it, like when you do a sketch. So it's definitely a learning curve. Like um, we as a concept artist, we definitely have like one idea, but it's the people with us, it's the people we work with us, like who are basically working on the same project with the team. So it's those folks who actually push us, like to like do better, to do like beyond what our limits are. So their feedback, their suggestions, it's extremely important to like find our own learning curve. Yeah.
All right. And how does your design process usually go anytime you want to start working on a new piece or a project? Like basically, what does the structure of your pipeline looks like when you want to work on a new piece?
Sure. So in terms of like a pipeline, are you specifically asking for concept art process or
No, the whole thing from the prompt, from the moment you get the prompt till the end when you have the finished product, so we can then pass it on to the next person on the pipeline,
Definitely. So usually what we proceed with is like a prototype. So we have like a very small, as an IP, if you want to, let's say for an example, if you want to create a game, right? Now we select out like very few amount of people like from our existing team, and we create a small pod of it, like let's say around 10 to 15 folks, in which there is a development manager, there is a product manager, there is also a game designer, there is also a software engineer. So all industry of folks, like they come together to plan this up. They think that these are the milestones that we need to clear out. So first comes the game designer. Game designer has like a very textbook, a very Excel sheet of like way to like show that okay, these are the items that we are thinking as creating a game, right? And from there like we decide that okay, certainly like we need art for this. We need like a bit of concept art, like that's a bit thought out like for this particular game. So then concept artist comes on, like he basically manages like very first initial stages of like thumbnail stacking, just very rough amount of like color sketches, color keys, some backgrounds. So they initially create like a very small format of like assets, which then again, like then there is also a software developer. They also jump in, like they also create like a very vanilla prototype, like where everything is just like very basic. It's and then as we move forward, like there is also a meta, there is alphabet, there is beta, and then there is LMT. So there's a lot of like process that goes into it. But stage wise, this is the very initial stage of it, like where a very 10 or 15 folks, like they just join in as a team and best of the best, and then they bring in their thoughts and then their ideas of it, like what they think about it for this particular game, and we basically improve from there onwards.
All right. Now we've reached we've reached the general art section of the podcast, which of course I'm also, I posted like a question box in the stories of my, page about like if anyone had any questions, and someone posted the question actually, which is the Toon Boy asks, should a concept art be, I think he meant concept artists, be proficient in both character and environments, or there can be a specification?
Well, I have seen both of the worlds actually. Like I have seen both sort of concept artists who are doing really good in environments as well, and some folks are like doing just the characters. Now it's absolutely up to us. Like if we want to like dive into like character design, or do we want to be like a versatile like method, like in terms of the portfolio. Now there are different ways to do this. Like as a concept artist, if we want to work on multiple projects, like if we feel like I don't only want to work on like mobile games, then I feel like there is a different style for it, like realistic styles, which is like for console games like AAA HD titles. Now for these games, like you need to have a very traditional format of Photoshop skills, in which you have to be very realistic about it, realistic, semi-realistic. There are ways to do it, like for a particular console game. But for mobile games, it's mostly a 2D game format, right? Now it's mostly 2D, like read well because of the small screen. Like there is also 3D games, but then it get a lot of oscillation, a lot of like noise, and there is not exactly that much of like an amount of detail that's still expressed on a mobile screen, as my personal opinion. But I feel like 2D games are like really eye catchy, and it shows like the colors and the crispness of every object like very proper. I think it's a very combined package like altogether. But to cover your question, I think as a concept artist, if we are versatile in terms of our portfolio, it definitely helps us like to go beyond like something that we may have like even thought of. So I think to have that sort of versatile art style in the beginning, I would say like 5 to 6 years, like when you're starting up, it's okay to like start up like with characters or as well as backgrounds as well. Because as a concept artist, I think like in my job, like what we have to do is like I also have to create characters as well as backgrounds. Sometimes we also make use of like UI art like at times. So even UI art like is pretty like obvious, like when you're creating a game from the scratch. So as a concept artist, a senior concept artist, you have to make sure that okay, these are the parameters, and the visual language is like your arena. You have to play every card over there, right? So for that matter, it's good to have a versatile portfolio. It's good to have like a bunch of new skills. Like these days, like even concept artists, like going with 3D art, right? They are also getting used to like 2D as well as 3D. So it's more of a general platform, like for people who are hiring. So it's an obvious choice these days. So it's a good thing to have a very versatile portfolio. However, this is your own personal, area, and think about this as a longevity. Like, think about it that this is something that you want to keep your ideas in. You want to, try and do better of where you were last day. So I think it's like a 1% every day, when you are improving each and every day. So if you're enjoying something 100%, 110%, I would say, if you're enjoying something to that particular manner, I say go with that. If character design interests you entirely, please go with that. If background design is something that interests you entirely, it's your own choice. It's your own world. Now, if you want to create a whole book on it, there are artists who actually create art book on the particular sketchbook they have. They create a small volume of art book. So there are ways to express yourself. There are ways to express your portfolio, how you want to be seen in industry. So it's totally up to you. It's totally up to us how we are deciding, we are guiding our own style. So definitely, but personally, this is what I believe. Personally, what I feel is that having a versatile set of skills, it's definitely helpful in terms of getting new projects or new game titles. So yeah.
All right. I hope you enjoyed that answer. And all right, let's see. Oh, here's a very important question. Which one of the Plants vs Zombies game is your favorite? You do them both, or which one do you play the most?
So definitely Plants vs Zombies Free, the OG one, number one. That's my favorite because it's the idea that counts, right? It's not the art style or anything that comes later on. That's a skin part of it, but versus soul of it, it's the idea of it, right? Plants vs Zombie, the history of it, how it got started. For me, that's the most OG thing. It's the most beautiful thing. Now, I have seen little different mechanisms from PVC free, which I have not seen transferred into PVC 2. So yeah, there are it's in bits and pieces which I feel I feel PVC free is much more superior, even though for that particular time it was very low cost and a very basic game. But I feel really connected to it in terms of basic environment, the whole idea of it, how the game started off. So definitely, yeah, that would be my pick for it.
And which plant is your favorite plant?
Oh, that's a nice one. Now, I think Mega Gatling Tree would be my favorite one because it has barrels of a machine gun sort of a mouth, and it's also a very famous pea shooter face. So it's a mix of it, but you see it's an amped up version of pea. So it's absolutely beautiful, the way how it's designed. So it's simple, yet I'm sold on it. So yeah.
Yeah, exactly. I remember I was 10, 11 years old when I first found out about Plants vs Zombies, and yeah, I had a lot of fun on that game. I fondly remember that on my old PC. And yeah, my favorite setup wasn't at first, it was the Gatling P thing, as you said. But I realized that if you install those 3-lane shooters, those P that shoots at 3 different lanes. Do you know those? Remember those?
Yes.
Those are much more effective actually. If you do that, and you put those fire logs in front of them, and boom, unstoppable. And a huge walnut. Oh god, I'm getting just nostalgia flashbacks right now.
Definitely.
I might actually install it after this podcast. Legit.
Yeah, I think even I remember like back in 2012, like when I was just starting up with my, um, I think my masters or something, masters or like first year of like college. I remember during that time, like this game was released, PVC 2, and it was definitely one experience like I'll never forget. Like from um, like experiencing these games, like Mario, then there is Sonic. So these are the like very core memory like what we have like for our childhood. Now this is also like part of it. Like it's when it started up, I was like, holy shit, this is so good, right? Like in terms of like art style and how the characters were animating on screen, it was absolutely beautiful. And it was simple animation. Now I'm more of a 2D art person. I'm more of a 2D animation person. Like I feel like it requires a lot of craftsmanship. It's hand sketched. Everything is like in a very traditional. So I feel like that is somewhere I feel like I'm really attracted to. And I think PVC 2 was like sort of in that area where even backgrounds are like painted like if you I've seen like one of the PSD files from our backgrounds, and it's so detailed. Like when you zoom in, it's pixels and everything. It's really beautiful. So yeah, I think it's just a part of the journey. It's really good.
All right. And well, now here's an interesting topic that we also mentioned before we start a call of the podcast, which is the subject of finding your personal art style. Now, I mean, it's a really, we can even talk about it for 2 hours, at least this topic. But I was wondering, if you could give us a quick rundown of your ideas about this whole issue, that'd be, I think, pretty awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Um, well, to say like to find your own art style, it's a very tough thing. Like I have had like real good struggles, like in the beginning when I started up like with traditional art. So in fine arts journey, like it's very traditional stuff. Like you learn what others are learning. So there is nothing different from it. There is nothing like unique that you are expressing on your end, right? Now understanding your own style, getting to your style, particularly like in terms of how we are approaching with a proper direction, because everything you see, it's part of an observation, and what you execute is like how you have planned up your stuff, right? Now, when you are traditionally like working towards it, like there is very basic sketching. You can sketch like outdoors. You have portraits, like you do whatever stuff. But then, what exactly is your what is your voice, right? Like what is it that you want to try as an artist? Like what is it something that you want to express as an artist? So that's the main thing. Like it's something that's connected to you, something that you feel that okay, this is something I would rather spend my time and effort for. Now, when I found out, like, when I, with this sort of art style, this sort of, like, particular method would work for me, it took me about 7 years, like, to be honest. It wasn't easy. Like, it was definitely back and forth of, like, understanding, okay, this style is something that is not so much connected to me. This is something that's, like, still, I feel like I'm half-assing it. So, it's a part of it that you still feel that you want to improve, but then you still can't improve because you are not liking it. So that's the whole psychology behind it. Don't go into stuff like which is not personal to you, because at the end, like at the longevity, like you feel like you're not connected to it because it's not personal to you, right? It's a very simple thing, like, and people overcomplicate it with like oh, this looks really good, like I should be working for this. But it's not about like how it looks like, it's how you perceive it as a person, like as an artist. if you feel connected, like, as per your own standards, as per your expression or like, thoughts, I feel like that would be the key point where you will find your breakthrough. That, okay, this is something, it may be hard, it may be difficult to reach there, but it's something personal to me. So I'm going to put my 100%, 110%, I would say, to like, achieve that area, to achieve that art style. So, yeah.
All right, awesome. And all right, here's a like some sort of challenging question. Who are some of your favorite artists and designers that have, inspired you the most?
Oh, this is, I have like actually thousand of following, like follow, I would say I'm following those folks like who are currently on my list. Like I would say Shiraj Talang is one of my favorite ones. He's very mature. He is quite simple, like in terms of like shape analogy, and his works are like just absolutely amazing. So I think he's one of it. Then there is also um, Lucas Pisano. I think I'm pronouncing it right, but Luca Pisano. I'm not sure if that's how we pronounce it, but he's a he's a visual development artist at DreamWorks, and he's amazing. In terms of like environments, I love his artworks, like how golden ratio and all sort of like shape terminology comes in together. It's a beautiful composition, like all together. So for environments, I prefer his work. It's absolutely breathtaking. So yeah.
All right. And what are you working on right now that you can tell us about? I mean, of course, if there's always NDAs involved, and I get that, but if that's not the case, or if there's any info that you can share with us, what are you doing right now, basically?
Well, of course, as you say, like confidential stuff, like I can't say what I'm working on right now. So it's let's put it this way, like it's a prototype, something that we are working on. It's a very similar thing, but at this particular point, like I'm working on PVZ2 as a senior concept artist, and yeah, that's the thing. So we have brief R&D like currently going on for like a new game. So let's see. Fingers crossed how it goes.
All right, awesome. Looking forward to it. And all right, we've reached the final question of the podcast, which is the final section and question of the podcast, which is called Final Words. All right, let me explain. Imagine in a limited amount of time, you had the opportunity, the window of time to say anything, just anything. It doesn't have to be art from yourself, from Sahil, to anyone else who might be listening to this podcast at any point of time in future. So imagine this as a time capsule, and this is your moment to express yourself to other people. What would you say? I know it's one of those tough questions. I'm sorry to put you on the spot, but I always love the answers. Do go on.
This is a really good question. You got me on the hooks. Yeah, this is a really good question. So I think my answer to this would be don't. I mean, do you allow profanity in this podcast, or is it?
Yes, okay? No worries at all. You can say fuck, shit, anything you want. I'm not sponsored, so go on.
All right, so I would say like if this is like in a part of a time capsule, I would say like don't give a fuck what others think about you. I feel like a lot of people care about like themselves in terms of like what others will think about you, what others will perceive of like what you should be doing, you should be acting up like and all sort of stuff. I feel like you should go beyond that barrier and just enjoy your stay on this planet. Like this is one time opportunity. This is one time like thing that you are as an artist, you're trying to express yourself. So be one, like just be who you are in terms of like do things that that drive you like, really passionate towards like, something that you want to do, right? Now, a lot of times, like there is a lot of filter that, people, make assumptions about you that you may be like, working towards this, you may be like, working towards that. So it's sort of like this and that, like, all sort of conversation that goes around you. I think that you need to go beyond that. You need to understand that, okay, what is something that personally that feels connected to you? And I feel like once you crack into that, once you do like, say fuck off to all of that, then you feel like, okay, this is something where I feel like, okay, this is my area. This is something where I feel like, okay, I got it. Now that's part of the confidence. I mean, as an artist, like a lot of folks do this, that they're very shy. They are like very soft spoken. I feel like you're a rebellious person. You're an artist. Like you are a person who need to fight for their like ideas. They like get on board. So a lot of times like we are tested on our confidence. We are tested on our patience level. So it's okay to like listen to yourself. It's okay to like noise cancel that part of your life where people are like making assumptions, making things about you. So try to focus on yourself, try to focus on your priorities rather than to like what others are like perceiving about you, because they may say these kind of stuff like just for a moment, for an hour or two, for a couple of days, but then it's not going to affect them personally anyway. It's going to affect you at the end, right? Because you as an artist are artist is an emotional being. We care about stuff. We think about like in a very depth of a manner. We care about like these kind of like comments or like these ideas like when it's like later on us. So I think it's quite important that you as a person is in the main part of the picture. That is the main thing. Yeah.
All right, that's actually a wonderful answer, honestly. And I hope that, the cursing thing doesn't affect the fact that in the future I might get a sponsor. But at this point, it's been so many episodes that it's too late to go back. So fuck, I said it again. So, just to ruin it more. All right.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, man, for coming by. It was a real pleasure. It was a real fun episode. And thank you to anyone who tuned in and listened to this episode. I hope you enjoyed it. As always, if there's any comments or critiques down below in the comments, or send to me on my private Instagram. I always read them all. And that's about it. Till next episode. See you soon. Take care. Bye.